So let's get started. So we are super excited to have you, Mayuko, kicking off our very first IET Speaker Series. So Mayuko is a content creator and software engineer. After working in Silicon Valley tech companies like Intuit, Patreon, and Netflix for 6 years as an iOS engineer, she became a full-time creator in 2020. Her work aims to help people find their way through the tech industry by sharing her own experiences navigating this world through technology, career advice, and lifestyle videos. She is passionate about discussions around mental health, cultural identity, and creating technology with empathy and compassion. So we, again, are so excited and so happy to have you with us tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can share your screen. If it will let me stop sharing my screen.
I think I can take it over. Here we go. I think I got it. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the intro and thank you so much for having me. Brittany, I am so excited to give this talk to you all, from those of you who are from Northern Virginia Community College. My name is Mayuko, and today, I don't know how long my presentation is going to be. I'm aiming for it to be 30 to 45 minutes. It's an interactive presentation. It's really about the cream of the crop about what I do. And it's titled Finding Your Own Path into the Tech Industry. So thank you for being here. Hope you enjoy, and let's get started. So another quick introduction about me. My name is Mayuko Inoue, pronounced she, her, hers. I'm based in San Diego, California, which is why you see my light-filled room here because there's still sunlight over here. I'm a software engineer, also content creator, mainly on YouTube. I'm both Japanese and American. I was born here, but my parents are Japanese, and I love dogs, coffee, and chill vibes. So in making this talk today, I had a couple goals in mind for what I wanted to do with this presentation. One anti-goal too, actually. So I just wanted to share this with you. So one of my goals is to create an interactive workshop for you all that's engaging and valuable. I know that y'all have been e-learning for like a year and a half now. And the last thing that I wanted to do was just to like have you sit there and just absorb again, because I was like, you know what, this is like supposed to be fun. And I'm hoping that the presentation and workshop I made for you is going to be engaging. Another goal of mine is to give you some space to exercise introspection and give thought-provoking prompts. And then my last goal is to give you kind of some non-traditional advice from someone in the tech industry. As far as I understand it, NOVA is a lot about like technology, software engineering, computer science, technology, stuff like that. And I know that I could sit here and give you resume advice. I could give you interview tips, but I'm not going to do that. So an anti-goal is to give you a list of data structures, algorithms, resume tips, interview tips to help you land a job. You can find a lot of this stuff on my YouTube channel, and I am more than happy to answer those questions in the Q&A, but I'm not going to go through that in my presentation because that's what I talk about all the time. And this is also a place for me to kind of play and have fun and interact with you all too. So those are my goals for my presentation. So let's get into it. I'm going to talk about the agenda now. So first, I'll do a little bit more of a brief introduction about who I am and how I got to where I am. And then we'll go over kind of the core part, finding your own path, an interactive workshop. At the end, I'll give you a little bit of advice from me to you based on kind of some of the things that we talk about. And then lastly, I think we'll have plenty of time for questions. So please don't be shy. There's no such thing as bad question. I don't judge anybody on questions or anything like that. I'm happy to answer anything. I'm an open book. Okay, so let's talk about me first. So I wanted to just set some context about who I am and kind of how I've come to be where I am right now. So my two motivators for life after college was to do work that helps others. This was passed down to me from my parents. This is a very strong value that they instilled in me because they're both teachers. And then the second thing for life after college was to be financially independent. After college, I needed to be on my own 2 feet. I didn't have any other family here, so I needed to be able to like fend for myself, if you will. I didn't really have like a big what is it called? Like safety nets to fall into. So I needed to be financially independent. So with those two things in mind, doing work that helps others, being financially independent, that explains a lot about my career. in a nutshell, which starts with me going to school for computer science at UC San Diego. I graduated in 2014. I did not know that I wanted to do computer science when I started school. I thought I wanted to be a chemistry major or a neuroscience major. And I just really serendipitously fell into computer science without really having coded a line of anything before college. But computer science was a thing that afforded me to help those around me and then also be financially independent. So that's what I did. After that, I went on to work at Intuit. That was my very first job out of college. I did an internship with them during school. I was a software engineer for the TurboTax and QuickBooks iOS app. So if y'all did your taxes on the mobile app with TurboTax, probably ran through some of my code. QuickBooks is an accounting software, so Intuit was very fintech. And then I left Intuit to work at a company called Patreon. That company is a company that's helping creators get paid. So your favorite podcasters, game streamers, writers, YouTubers, beauty gurus, whoever else you might like, probably has a Patreon. So I was working there for about 2.5 years as a software engineer, again, on iOS. So I was working on the Patreon iOS app. And then after that, I left to work at Netflix as a software engineer for the Netflix iOS UI team. That really just means I was working on the iOS app. So if you have Netflix on your phones or on your iPads, that was the team that I was on, building the user interface for the Netflix app. So I was there for a little over a year. And then in early 2020, I left to be a YouTuber, making videos about tech, career, and life. So, yes, YouTubing. It's not exactly the most risk-free, steady job, financially independence guaranteed sort of role. So, why and how did I get into making videos from being in a career that I was honestly really super proud of building? TLDR is that I got a computer science degree and then I worked for 6 years as an iOS developer, and now I'm a YouTuber, an influencer. How did that happen? Well, it was one fateful week at a conference called Vidcon, where video creators specifically from all over the world came together in Anaheim, California. This was in 2017. I got to go as a part of the team at Patreon because something that I was working on for the iOS app was going to be announced at VidCon. And my team got to go. That's my team in the top right, because we were like, yeah, let's go talk to creators about what we were building. So it was a very fateful weekend because also at the time I was thinking about how can I increase my impact outside of work? What else can I be doing in order to help others in the work that I do? And YouTubing, like the reason why I started working at Patreon to begin with was because I loved YouTube. I was one of those like high schoolers that like just watched YouTube all the time. So it was kind of a long time coming. And that weekend was when I was just like, you know what? I think I'm going to make my very first YouTube video. So I did. I made my very first YouTube video. Oh, there's a sound. I'm going to mute the sound. Here we go. So this was my very first video, a day in the life of a software engineer. It kind of went viral. It currently has 5 million views, which is absolutely wild. But it's a video of me going through my life as a software engineer. No talking, just some chill music playing in the background. It literally shows me commuting, coding, getting coffee with friends, and going to lunch and stuff. So that was my very, very first video. And I was kind of like, this is great. Like, I think the thing that I really wanted to do in helping people was showing folks that, like, yes, I am a non-male, non-white person. I'm a Japanese American woman who is made it to the tech industry. I've made it to Silicon Valley and I'm living my life. I'm doing it. And I kind of wanted to show that. And so I made this video then. And it kind of informed the couple of videos that came afterwards too. I made videos like, what do I actually do as a software engineer? Do you even need math to be a software engineer and stuff like that? So I started to get really in it. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make videos. This is a thing. But frankly, I was really lost. I actually got a lot of traction on my first video. Like, it went viral very suddenly, even though my expectations of it was just to have my friends watch it. And I didn't really know what I was doing. Remember, I had been a software engineer up until that point, studying computer science. I had never taken a creative writing class. I didn't know how to work a camera. I didn't know how to post, or I don't know how often I should post on YouTube, Instagram, on Twitter. Like, I was just so lost. Didn't know how to be creative whatsoever. And that's when I talked to a friend of mine who had been doing YouTube for about 10 years at that point. And he asked me a series of questions that gave me clarity. They were really deep questions about who I was, what I wanted, and where I wanted to go. Those questions subsequently are the ones that I'm going to ask you all later in a few minutes as part of the workshop. But through all of those questions, through answering those questions, I eventually found my mission for why I was doing YouTube. Why was I doing this to begin with? And it was to help people find their own path through life and the tech industry. So, with that mission statement in mind, I've been making videos since 2017. I've made a lot of videos, a ton of different kinds of videos, ranging from things like resume tips to imposter syndrome to being bilingual in Japanese and English to my anxiety to hustle culture, all of just a very wide gamut of things. And so they create the three tent poles of my work: tech, career, and life, spanning from everything related to tech industry deep dives to career advice and tips, mental health, and cultural identity. I made it a point to talk about all of these things because these are all a part of me. This is who I am. There were other YouTube channels I had been doing coding tutorial content at the time, but I wanted to make something that I wanted to make and had fun with. And this all encompasses who I am and what goes on in my brain. So that's what my channel is. So yeah, my whole work has really been dedicated to like helping people find their own path. I'm not saying that I've necessarily found my own perfect path yet. It's still a work in progress, as is anything else. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So you might be asking, why should you find your own path? Like, but why? I totally get that. And the reason why I wanted to talk a little bit about my background is because like doing all of this, like finding my own path has been really pivotal to my evolution as not just a YouTuber, but as a human person. It's helped me to find clarity, purpose, and fun in both my life and my work. So it's informed things that I do on YouTube, informed who I become friends with, informed how I spend my weekends, all of that kind of stuff. I think we're just in a world right now where we're learning so much how different we are from each other, and also that no two people are alike. And so it's especially really important to find our own path. And I think especially in a world where the tech industry, like it's not very diverse, like and the products and inventions and customs are also unprecedented. As technologists, as people going into the industry, as people who are going to create these products and services, I think it's worthwhile to figure out, okay, at least, maybe we don't know what the world is going to look like or what we're doing per se, but what we can do is figure out who we are and have that inform our choices. So again, going back to the question, why should you find your own path? But why though? I wanted to give my very subjective 2 cents on why. Again, you don't have to agree with me on any of this. It's totally okay. Like you and I are very different people and I don't know what backgrounds y'all come from, but I did want to share what I've learned. So when it comes to finding your own path, especially in something like your career, it can be really tricky. Careers typically have this really like professional connotation. Wear a suit, maybe show up from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, do good work. Career almost has this like cold, lifeless, soulless connotation sometimes. Not for everybody, but that's a connotation that exists. And you know what? Sometimes it's the truth, but I don't think it has to be that way. Because I think careers are inherently personal. They provide our lifestyles, our life lessons, and they're honestly what we spend a lot of time on. Obviously, for some people, careers are just there to help sustain their lifestyle too. Like there's do you work to live or you live to work? That's totally like a person by person. Like you have to decide what that is for yourself. And I also don't think that one is better than the other necessarily. It just is, and everyone's got their own answer. But anyways, we do spend a lot of time and energy on our work, regardless of how you see work. And it does take active work to get what we want out of it and also to direct it to where we want it to go. This is actually not just true for work and career, but also for things like life, family, social relationships, career, finances, personal identities, and much, much more. So, we as individuals are all tasked with managing all of this ourselves. So, how can we kind of like work smarter and not harder to really figure out how to carve our own path and live the life we want? We have a lot of things we're balancing in life. How can we do all of this well? Well, I think it's by constantly introspecting and reevaluating our core truths. I think working on our foundations, thinking about who we are, who we want to be, and how we can get there can really help inform everything else. Who we become friends with, where we work, where we live, when we want to retire, how much time we spend commuting, etc. So, how do you find your own path? Well, this almost seems too easy because I think of it as a 3-step process, but there's actually more than that. But just for simpleness, I think the first thing is to figure out who you are, really figure it out. The second thing is to figure out what you want and where you want to go. And then the last thing, based on those 2 things above, is to find or create opportunities to let you do your thing in the way that you want to do them. And I'm not going to lie to you, I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect. No one is. There's multiple times throughout the year, well, I don't even know where I'm going, or I don't really know what matters to me or who I am. But knowing, or at least trying to figure out my own answers to these questions is the work I do to help me on my path and be unafraid to go where maybe others haven't even gone before. Again, we're all just living in an unprecedented time. So how can we go through all of this? So that's why I wanted to provide some time today for you all to do this, because maybe it's hard to carve out that time, I think, to introspect if it's not a habit already. So I wanted to provide this time for you all. So I'm going to give you the space and time to think about your own core truths to help inform your career, lifestyle, relationships, like whatever it is that you want direction in. You can decide what that is for yourself. You can make it super broad. You can make it super narrow. At this point, I would recommend that you find somewhere you can write: Google Doc, Notion page, classic pen and paper, whatever works for you, whiteboard, I don't know, whatever you've got. So I'll give you some time to put that together. And then I have a series of prompts, about 6 prompts. So I'm going to give you about 4 minutes per prompt to write your answers to these questions. When it comes to writing your answers, do stream of consciousness. Do write down the first thing that comes to mind. Don't judge it. Just like write it out. Just let your brain go. This is the exercise that my friend did with me when I didn't know what I was doing with YouTube, and it helped immensely. I think just don't overthink it. Whatever comes out is a very honest answer. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll give you a little bit more time to get together pen, paper, open up a new Notion page, maybe set up a little nice header for your Notion page, choose a nice emoji, choose a nice font color. Okay, I'm going to assume everyone's got a place to write. Okay, so unfortunately, I don't have any cool background music or anything like that, but I'm going to give prompts. I'll let you know when to move to the next prompt. Again, I'll give you about 4 minutes each time. So these questions are centered around those 3 things: figure out who you are, figure out where you want to go. And then that last part of find opportunities and create opportunities to get to where you want to go. That's the work that happens after this workshop. So let's get going with our first question. What are you good at? From your own perspective, without judgment, what are skills that you have that you could talk about or teach others about? It's hard to know what you're good at, but think about what you could teach another person, or think about what you're really proud of. You can think about this from a perspective of family, social life, work, hobbies, rest, health, finances, etc. I'll give you 4 minutes starting now. Okay, start finishing up your final thoughts. We'll move to the next question very soon. Okay. All right. Next question. How do you motivate yourself? What are your motivators? And think about, are they negatively or positively reinforced? Which really means, are your motivators things that make you happy in the end, or are you running away from certain things, or you're mitigating risk or something? Just kind of think about, like, what are the things that motivate you to do what you have to do, what you want to do, what you need to do. Again, 4 minutes. Okay, start wrapping up. And we'll move on to the next question soon. Okay, next question. What risks do you/can you tolerate? Are you comfortable taking risks in? What are you uncomfortable with? Again, family, social life, work, hobbies, rest, health, finances, etc. Think about it from different perspectives. For the remaining prompts, I'm actually going to give 2 minutes. So we can start that now. Okay, and start wrapping up. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. This is a big one. What matters to you? Like, what makes you feel good? What makes you feel bad? If you can't put it into words, think about those times where something made you feel really great or something made you feel really terrible. 2 minutes again. Go ahead and start. All right, start wrapping up. Oh, there's my timer. Okay. So those were some of the questions for Know Thyself. The next two are going to be about knowing your direction. The first one is, what do you want in life? What kind of life do you dream of living? Or what kind of life do you not want? 2 minutes. right. Moving on to the next question, the last one, real soon. Okay, and the last one, what do you love doing? What do you really enjoy? Think about a time you felt genuine joy or fulfillment or happiness or gratitude. And if it helps, you can think about, what do you not love doing? What do you really not enjoy, if that's easier? 2 minutes. Okay. All right. Well, that was the last prompt. So if y'all just want to finish up your last thoughts and then bring it back, that concludes the workshop part. If you were writing with a pen and paper, hopefully your hand's not cramping too much. All righty. Great. Well, thank you all so much for participating in that. I can't see you, so I don't know how that was for y'all, but I do hope that you learned something about yourself. It gave you some clarity in the direction that you're headed towards. I think being able to answer these questions, figuring out who you are and figuring out where you want to go or what you want to do ultimately helps you to figure out, okay, now what do I do? Like, what are the opportunities that I need to create for myself or find or chase after in order to live the life that I want? And so this is just the first step of that. I do also encourage you all, in case, 2 minutes is not a super long time, to continue this exercise afterwards. Just set a timer for yourself, go through these questions again, and then see what comes out. I actually do this periodically and ask myself these questions at least twice a year, just to check in with myself to be like, you good, girl? Okay, cool. All right, let's just keep going. Or sometimes I'm like, wow, direction's totally different. Let's just see where this takes me. So thank you all so much for being a part of that with me. So before we hop into Q&A, I wanted to give you some advice for your journey in terms of like finding your own path. These may or may not help you. I don't know. Hopefully it will. I really hope it does. But in being able to find my own journey and finding my own path through the tech industry into YouTube, being kind of in my own niche on YouTube of creating tech career lifestyle content, these are some of the things that I learned. Okay, so the first, maybe the most important thing is to pay attention and honor your journey. So I say pay attention because, some of those questions that I asked before, sometimes you just don't know the answer to them. But if you have those questions in your mind, you can pay attention to what brings you joy. what makes you sad, what makes you angry, and then think about, oh, why does that make me happy? Why does it make me sad? Why does it make me angry? There's a lot of cues, I think, that happen in life, in the universe, as we go about our days, big and small, that are, I think, nudging us towards where we're supposed to go or where we want to go. And then I think like the whole pay attention thing has a lot to do with feelings. And thing about feelings, unlike coding, is that they can be very illogical and it can feel like they're getting in the way. But I found that you have to honor them. It's important to honor them. I've come to think of them as road signs that help you stay on your path, or tell you to get off the one you're on. I've been going to therapy for many years, and every time I ignore my feelings or don't honor my journey, I end up taking many steps back. And it takes time, it takes work, it takes patience, but I think it's incredibly important. Oh, yes. And Brittany said to feel free to type your questions in the chat right now that I will get to afterwards. So feel free to do that. Okay. Mayuko's advice number 2: life is long, but also short. So I say this because, you know what, I think we pretend that life is going to end tomorrow sometimes, because yes, we could actually be all gone tomorrow. And so I think the thing that I take from that is that it's important to show up with gratitude and purpose, and be thankful that we have another day here. But in reality, I think life is actually very long. We're here for the long run. We do take it day by day, week by week, month by month, but what we do every day amounts to these larger things that we accomplish in life. Also, things that, problems, issues that we come about, bumps in the road, they happen. But as I've gotten older and stuff, I've been thinking a lot about, okay, since life is long, instead of having life be this up and down, like wild roller coaster journey, maybe I can think about how I can smooth out the bumps in the road towards an upward trajectory that gets me closer to who I want to be. I think it's important to think about these in both lenses of life is long, but also short, because it gives you kind of insight into how you should plan your energy and time and think about certain things. Also, don't burn yourself out too quickly. I definitely used to think that life is so short. So like, oh my gosh, do everything at once right now. But that leads to burnout. I like to think of it as it's important to have a smooth running car that goes at a really steady pace over a long distance, over one that goes from 0 to 100 often and then stalls. So don't burn out. Okay. Mayuko's advice number 3: things take time. In answering these questions, or just in general, it's totally okay if you don't know what you want right now, or you don't know who you are right now. That's also okay too. Progress is not immediate. Day in, day out, the sum of all of your efforts becomes something greater, similar to what I said earlier. Because you know what, trust me, I'm on the internet. I know how virality works. And you don't want to one-hit wonder through the rest of your life. It's important to just kind of think about, yes, life is long. What are the things that I can do? How do you make progress? I really like the phrase progress, not perfection, because perfection gets in the way sometimes. But it's, practice, patience. Maybe it will feel like you're going backwards for a very long time, but I think there's always something to be learned there. Honor your journey. Okay. And the last piece of advice: community and connections are worth it. I think community is magic. Special things happen there, like a mix of cool chemical reactions. For example, my college friends. I don't know. Maybe this is something that you can expect from people, but I had no idea they'd played such a big role in helping me set my course. They're the ones that got me my first internships. They're the ones that I later worked with later on. They're the ones that I went to for advice, or that I could help them in the future. Community is so cool. So I think, making connections, finding your people is really important, because people like helping people so long as they have the capacity to do so. So being able to help others obviously is really important, but also by putting yourself out into the universe, aka telling people what you're up to, telling people what you're about, where you want to go. If someone hears about it and they like you or your goals, they might help you. Worst case, your message disappears into the ether, and that's okay. But imagine if someone offered you a shortcut through life. If your goal is to work at a FANG company and you let people know, yo, I want to work at a FANG company, I promise you someone is listening and you'll get there if you just keep putting that energy out. So that concludes the talk part of it. I'm totally open to general feedback and discussion, questions. Also, if you would like to share about like what you learned in your kind of reflective period, I would also love to hear that if you're comfortable with it. I know it's very personal, but that would be great. Even if it's just in the chat, let me know what you thought about that reflective exercise workshop. But yeah, question time. Thank you all for being here.
So feel free if you want to share. I know we had some feedback in the chat. Someone said that was great. Thank you for the reflection part.
Yay.
Oh, someone raised their hand. Miloyd, I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If you want to come off mute, you can unmute yourself to ask your question if you are able to.
Yeah, sure, no worries. You were kind of close enough anyways. It's pronounced Milad.
Milad, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you so much for coming out. And my question, so for me, this is a bit more like specific for me personally. So I mean, you can answer however you can. So I'm really looking to secure a software engineering internship this summer. And so for me, one of my goals right now is trying to reach out to recruiters. And I just wanted to know what were some things maybe you can recommend or share, maybe like ways that I can really be as effective as possible when reaching out to those recruiters.
Yeah, definitely. So okay, I'm gonna preface this with I'm not a recruiter, so like this is like I'm gonna tell you things that I've heard from industry and recruiters and stuff. But I think really like in terms of like getting your first internship, one of the things that I think you could really do is to work on your resume. Recruiters, when they're looking through resumes, especially interns, like in the university recruiting pipeline or whatever, they get so many resumes and like it's hard to find like the right candidate that they're looking for. And also each company does university recruiting a little bit differently. Like recruiting interns and new hires like goes through an actual different process from hiring for like senior software engineers. So I actually don't have a lot of insight into the university recruiting section, but getting your resume up to snuff is, I think, one of the best things that you can do, because recruiters realistically, they actually really only look at your resume for 5 to 10 seconds. So making sure it's really well formatted, you add the technologies and skills and programming languages that you're strong in there, being able to exemplify like what impact you're able to make in your projects, what your interests are, if you have any like past experiences and stuff. I think that's really important. And also like, I think this is a tip that I tell like all of my friends when like, regardless of whether looking for intern or senior software engineer or whatever, just, like the recruiters are people and you're also people. So like try to make a connection, be kind, be friendly, make relationships in that way. And recruiters are talking to so many people every day. So like, be a personable, kind human being, and I think that can get you pretty far. But resumes, I think, are going to be one of the biggest ways to get in. And if you get invited to, or you have access to career fairs where recruiters come to hire interns, then definitely go to those, because they're literally going there to hire people. So yeah, I do have a video or two about how recruiting works. And I talked to someone at levels.fyi, which is a salary transparency tool. She used to be a recruiter for Amazon, Facebook, and Google, and she shared a lot of great insights about recruiting. So I would definitely go check that out. But thank you so much for your question, Milad, and I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I see questions in the chat too.
Questions in the chat. Okay,
Yeah.
so Michelle says, is there anything you wish you would have done differently early on in your IT career?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess first of all, I'm kind of like a no regrets person, sort of, because I know that the journey that I've had has led me here. So if I had done anything differently, it probably would have led me down somewhere completely different. One thing that I wish I had done, this is more specific to school. I don't know if this is like right on point with what you were asking. But I had wished that I had made more connections with my professors and TAs and people at my school. My university was a large research institution, and so my computer science classes were like 300 people. And so it was really hard to like get to know other people, even my classmates. And I just wish I had done that more in school. I did a lot more networking after college, like in the industry, because I don't know what it was, but it became easier and it was less scary. But I wish I had done that more, because I really only keep in touch with like one of my professors. And I sometimes wish that I could have kept in touch with more, just because I think my learning would have been richer that way. It would be great to just like have more connections and relationships within the industry that I could always like go back to and talk to and help and stuff like that. So yeah. Thank you for your
All
question,
right.
Michelle.
Perfect. Ethan says, is there anything, any aspect of the tech computer science industry that you think is overrated? Something that everyone thinks is a big deal, but maybe isn't as important as it seems.
Ooh. Yes. I'm going to answer that as two different questions, because I have two different answers for that, Ethan. So again, I'm prefacing this with, this is so subjective. This is just my opinion. But the thing that I think that's overrated about the tech industry is like going to San Francisco and working in Silicon Valley. I know that's where like a lot of y'all want to go, and it's like the Hollywood of the tech industry and stuff. And I know that I say this now because I worked there for 5 years, so I got it out of my system. But I think there's a lot of great tech that's happening outside of Silicon Valley, outside of San Francisco. Granted, the talent density is really high there, as in like there's a lot of really talented people there, which is what makes that place really special. But like, I didn't like living in the Bay Area, to be honest with you. It just didn't match my lifestyle. And so now I'm in San Diego and I love life. So like, I think there's a time and place, and there comes a time in many people's lives of just like putting your career before a lot of other things. But I just don't think that San Francisco and Silicon Valley is like the best place for everybody, no matter what, if you're in technology. So that's the first thing. Something that everyone thinks is a big deal, but maybe isn't as important as it seems, I guess. I think, again, this is me coming from senior software engineer. I haven't needed to break into the industry in a long time, but coding skills and technology programming skills, that stuff, now I think about it, it is really important. You have to have a foundational understanding of all of that. You have to know your data structures really well. You have to know how for loops work. You have to be really good at logic, be really good in a programming language. Like those are all really important things, especially if you're going to get a job. But I do think, coming from the other side of the pond here, coding skills, coding technologies, all of that can be learned. Certain other things like behavioral skills, collaboration skills, teamwork skills, project management skills are a lot harder to teach and learn. Also things like empathy as well. And so like, I think I feel this tension in my work a lot of just like, should I be making coding tutorial content? Because obviously that's the most important thing about the tech industry, right? Which is true. Like there is a time and place for that, and it is absolutely the foundation for everything. But I don't think that you can create good stuff without having the human side of things, I think. Without being able to work well with others, without being able to share and exchange ideas, give feedback, empathize with your teammates, your coworkers, your manager, your users who are using your thing. So yeah, I think like it totally makes sense when you're just entering the industry that's a really big, important part, because it is. I'm not saying don't focus on it, but I think that as you'll find throughout your career, there are more, like once you've passed this kind of like threshold of just like basic coding and programming skills, there's this entire just like, okay, like you have to have all these other skills in order to make good stuff, in order to be a good teammate. So that's what I think. Again, very subjective. Take my stuff with a grain of salt and maybe just consider it. But yeah, that's what I think. So thank you, Ethan, for the question.
I think this next question ties into some of what you just talked about. It's Yasmin again, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Please correct me if I'm not. Was a computer science degree enough to get you work as a software engineer, or did you have to teach yourself other things on the side to really prepare to work? By the way, the reflective period was great and helped me realize that I have a few main things I repeated almost for every question.
Yay, I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for your question. Yeah, so my computer science degree specifically was not enough to help me get work as a software engineer, mostly because my curriculum was really theoretical. I only took a few classes that really helped me in my work. Things like software engineering, where like there was literally a class called software engineering where within 10 weeks we build an app, web app, iOS app, Android app. I happen to make an Android app, and we learn things like Scrum and Agile, and being able to delegate work and working on a team, stuff like that. But yeah, not a lot of my classes helped me teach how to be a software engineer. So I did do a lot on the job. Actually, I think that I know that's something that I was very lucky to have the opportunity to do, to be able to learn on the job. Because the first job that I had at Intuit was as a result of an internship that I did at Intuit. And I got the Intuit job because I had a friend who worked there who helped me to get that spot. But yeah, like all of my iOS knowledge that I had, I took maybe one iOS class in college, but I was like the project manager. So I actually didn't do a whole lot of the coding part, to be honest with you. So most of what I learned was on the job. I've heard this echoed in many other software engineers, and that computer science degrees, the degree itself, having a bachelor's, is not that important. Like recruiters aren't necessarily looking at that usually as like you have to have this or you can't get the job. What they're looking for is skills. And there are a lot of great computer science, software engineering programs out there that really do teach you the real world skills in order to get a job. And there's great programs out there. I'm absolutely certain that Nova is one, because you're hosting stuff like this and Brittany's awesome. But like, yeah, I think there is a lot that you might have to do outside of those curriculums or in addition, to learn certain things. And, act like computer science education and academia have faced this for a long time, where they're like, we need to make curriculum that's up to date with the current stuff that's happening in the industry, but the industry moves so fast that we can't keep up. So what we're going to focus on is the fundamentals, and that tends to be theory. So I'm not saying that like my education didn't serve me at all. It actually served me really well, because I learned about how computers work and stuff and how to think like a computer. But it's just, there's a lot of stuff to learn in order to get that job, I think. So it really depends on the degree program and what your goals are and what you want. But yeah, for me, I did not get everything out of my degree program, but I'm not mad about it.
All right. Spencer says, can you explain the difference to me between a software engineer and software developer? I'm not sure why, but I just don't understand what the actual difference is between the two.
Yeah, that's a great question, Spencer. Honestly, I don't know. People like, like, I feel like there are some really small nuances, I think, that's the difference between the two. Like, I know that one thing that I've heard is engineer as a term is something that's like, it's like I don't know if it's like protected, but there's an accreditation that like exists to be called an engineer. And I think a lot of people from other engineering fields, like mechanical engineers, structural engineers, aerospace engineers, chemical engineers, like there's like a thing, like a test that they have to take in order to like be called an engineer, or their degree program has to like go through some accreditation system in order to be called engineering. So I know that like for some folks it's a sticking point for that. I've also heard people say that engineering is about like designing and creating, solving problems, creating systems, versus developing is more about like pumping out code. But I also think development, like you can't develop stuff without designing things and architecting things and creating solutions either. So I use them interchangeably. I also use programmer interchangeably. I know that it means different things to different people, but at the end of the day, like you make stuff with code, and that's what it is. So I don't think there's a huge difference, but to some people it does matter. But it doesn't matter to me.
All right. I think we've covered all the questions in the chat. Does anyone have one final question? I think we have time for one more and then we're gonna wrap up. Let me move my thing so I can see what's happening.
Be shy. I don't bite, I promise.
So I have a question as an older person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the appeal of being a YouTuber? What I just don't get it. But if you could explain that to me, that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question, Jack. Thanks. Okay, so the appeal of being a YouTuber, I think one thing which drives a lot of younger folks is that everybody wants to be a YouTuber or TikToker these days, because I think what they think is that it's like an instant shot for success. It's like, I feel like it's the equivalent of 20 years ago being on American Idol. Or like there's like this opportunity and you grasp it, and all of a sudden you're this celebrity because people know your talents, and all of a sudden you're making big bucks and you're famous and stuff like that. So I think that's like one of the appeals. For me, I really like being a YouTuber because I get to be kind of my own business owner. Like YouTube channels, like, believe it or not, they really are small businesses. They're really not that many people who are working on one channel. I myself just have myself and then my editor working on it to put all of the stuff together. And so I like being able to do like the both content creation, the really creative side. Like, how do I tell an engaging story about tips on resumes, or just a story about how I grew up and what my cultural identity means to me? That's very creative. And I love being able to have that space in writing, editing, filming, all of that, and make something cool. I really think of it as an art. And I think that's great. There's definitely kind of a business side of things, of just like, let's keep the business afloat. Let's make sure that I can do this, creating relationships with sponsors, like understanding how the YouTube algorithm works, understanding how like sponsorships work, understanding how mailing lists and merchandising works. I think that's really fun because like, I don't know, I think that's a really cool like way to think about your YouTube business. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think those two things combined are really fun for me. I even think of like each of my videos as a new product that I'm putting out there. And so I always go through, I mean, it's also like my software engineer training of just like, I am used to creating things for people. And so like part of the exercise that I do with every video is like, okay, what's the need out there? Who is the audience? Like, okay, based on this need and this audience, like what can I do to address that? And then the creative part comes in where I'm just like, okay, maybe these are the colors that I have. This is the music that I want. This is the actual story board for everything. Here's a couple jokes here and there. And then I put it out there. YouTube has really great analytics to be able to measure how it's done and how it performed. And then you can take that and learn from that and be like, do I want to make more videos? Do I want to not make any more videos about this topic? So I don't know. I think it's a really unique like system, I guess. And I also like being self-employed, I think is another big equation to that. So that to me is the appeal of being a YouTuber. It's a lot of work, I think. Like many people, I'm not saying that I'm like, oh my gosh, I work so hard, but it's like, there is a lot more work that goes into creating content than a lot of people see, because you see the final product. And I think that's an exciting thing, to create stuff. I just like creating things, and YouTubing just happens to be the thing that struck a chord with me.
Perfect. And as we are kind of wrapping this up really quickly, could you speak to, we had one last question in the chat, could you speak to any tips for a small YouTuber who's just starting out on content creation and such?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I have so many tips. Okay. But I think the first thing, okay, so for me, when I was starting, again, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what kind of content I wanted to make. I didn't know how to make any of the content. The thing that really helped me was to just make the first 20 videos. Like there's a lot to learn. There's a learning curve for everything. Like Premiere Pro is hard to use. Like you have to learn how to use that. You have to learn how to use YouTube Studio. You have to learn how to do graphics. Maybe you don't have to. But there's just a lot of stuff to learn. And so allowing yourself that time and space to just like experiment and play and learn, I think is really important, because in doing that, you're allowing yourself to be bad at it too. Like, I think it's also easy to compare yourself to like YouTubers who have been doing this for 5-10 years and have like a whole team of graphic designers and editors and stuff. I would start slow, like just make that first 20 videos and see how it goes. Also try to be consistent too if you're really trying to find success in YouTube, because in order to build an audience, you have to keep people engaged. In order to keep people engaged, you do have to post semi-regularly. So yeah, I think it's a lot of that. There are also a lot of great resources out there for new YouTubers. I really like watching video creators on YouTube. Also, Ali Abdal has a great course on he has a part-time YouTuber academy. It's like a 6-week course for how to become a YouTuber, basically. So there's a lot of stuff out there too for how to be a YouTuber, and I would look into that because everyone does it slightly differently, and figuring out something that works for you, I think, is the best thing.